We're talking with Elliott, noted author and author of the new book called The Rise of the State. Now, you are co-author of this book. Talk to me a bit about how you got involved in the project and about your co-authors.
The main writer of the book is Janis Mustras, is a longtime colleague of mine. He was the guy who sort of got the project off the ground. He covers the Asian markets and really emerging markets and sort of the BRIC countries and all the investment opportunities there. And in sort of doing some of the background research for the book, he came to understanding that energy is such a very important part of that story. Your Asian economies, the growth means they're using a lot more oil, a lot more natural gas. Just the energy demand growth is amazing. I mean, we heard very recently that last year China overtook the United States to become the world's largest energy consumer. And the U.S. has had that role for 100 years. So it's really a seismic shift, and he felt that it was such a crucial part of the book that he brought me on board to sort of help out with the energy side of the book and really covering what these countries are doing in terms of investing in new forms of energy and just making sure their citizens have access to energy going forward. The third co-author is David Dittman. He's been covering really the sovereign wealth fund angle. A lot of the countries that we hear so much about, China, but also a lot of the countries in the Middle East, the government actually has sort of a hedge fund, sort of an investment fund that goes out and invests in industries and companies that are going to be important to facilitating those countries' growth. So that would include energy, but really all sorts of industries around the world.
The sovereign wealth funds. Describe those.
As we all know, Kuwait's seeing really declining oil production. And they were one of the first to really develop this huge sovereign wealth fund. And if you think about just the amount of money that flows into a country from doing something like selling oil, just tremendous amount of money, that has to go somewhere. And so these countries put together basically a fund that goes and tries to invest in other industries that, again, can sort of take over from the growth as energy declines. In China's case, it's really just the fact of that country has so much inflow of foreign capital coming in. And a lot of that money has to be invested somewhere, and the state basically uses it to invest in things that they're going to need. For example, in my area of expertise, energy, China has been a big investor, for example, in Brazil. At the heart of the 2008 financial crisis, they lent Petrobras, which is Brazil's national energy company, $10 billion when banks weren't lending. But the Chinese were able to do that in order to gain access to oil coming out of that country's deep water reserves over the next 10 years or so. Looking at Australia, they've been a big investor in Australian coal, Australian minerals companies. So these are really state-run funds that have been developed in a lot of these countries. At first, it was really the natural resource companies. Now it's more some of the big Asian countries. Obviously, as an investor, you can't invest directly in the sovereign wealth funds. They're not publicly traded or hedge funds. But what you can do is really try to stand in front of the trends that they're pursuing. So, for example, a lot of these countries are going after energy reserves because they need energy to fuel growth, or commodities, iron, copper, etc., because they need that to build out infrastructure. Water, that's a big problem in a lot of developing countries. China, for example, a lot of formerly arable land is now essentially desert because they don't have access to fresh water. So they're investing in companies that can facilitate that. So really, as an investor, what you can do is try to get in front of those capital flows and invest in the companies that are going to benefit as that Chinese money moves in.